Hey there, welcome back to the JeepSolid Garage. Today we're finally getting back to Project Kiwi, replacing the clutch on it. Where we left off last time, we disassembled everything off of the transmission, the skid plate, all that, got it dropped down. Now I just have to disconnect the transmission from the engine. But I also found issues with the transfer case. Transfer case is leaking. It's time to rebuild the transfer case. Got to order parts for that. If I'm doing that, I may as well put a slip yoke eliminator on it. So much going on. And on top of that, I'm in the middle of rebuilding another 4-liter engine. Doing a live stream on that. That's a lot of fun. If you haven't tuned in for that, be sure to check it out. Come chat with us. So let's work on separating the transmission from the engine. What I am not sure of yet is if I want to remove the transfer case separate first, because I'm going to be removing it anyways. And you know what? It's just right there. Yeah, let's just drop the transfer case first, and then we'll get to the transmission next. Yep, that'll be easiest. It looks like whoever put this transfer case in last RTV'd it, but that is not necessary. There is normally no gasket that goes here, but obviously there's RTV here, because there's actually, it's not a sealed system. There's actually even right here on the passenger side, there's a little weep hole right there. And they even have that like gummed up with RTV. We'll get it out and show you guys here. 9/16 bolts all the way around. Let's get those off. Of course, I have been wrong before, so maybe you're supposed to put RTV there, but I really don't think so. What do you guys think? There's no gasket that I know of that goes there. There's that weep hole that, and yeah, the transmission's sealed, the transfer case is sealed, but the connection right between here, there's a seal on each end, and if anything leaks in there, it's just supposed to dribble out of that little weep hole. And yeah, you just put, yeah, normally metal on metal, you have like some type of gasket, but not there. Not that I'm aware of. Leave a comment, let me know what you guys think. Gasket, RTV, or nothing? What's your vote? Got my jack ready to go, my transmission jack. But normally we don't have fluid leaking there. But in this case we do, because that weep hole is all gummed up. Okay, now am I just completely wrong here? As I'm loosening the final bolt up there, fluid is just pouring out here. From my memory, there's not supposed to be fluid there. There's a weep hole there, it's supposed to be open. This is sealed, that's sealed, there's seals on each end, but in between, let's open it up and find out, but it is just pouring out. Well, maybe it just seemed like more fluid than was actually there, but I'm gonna double down on my hypothesis and from my memory that, yeah, no gasket there. Let's pull this case off. Fortunately, all that leaking makes me think it's gonna come off a little bit easier, but get my transmission jack, let's pull it off. Okay, I was right and wrong all at the same time, if that's possible. So yeah, your transfer case is sealed on this part. You got your input shaft here. There's a seal around there. You shouldn't have fluid really leaking past that unless your seal's leaking. And then on the transmission side, same thing. You don't need all this RTV. They do make a paper gasket. I actually looked up, did a little more research. They make a paper gasket you can put here. There is a weep hole there that, you know, is supposed to stay open. And if you have this seal here, when that input shaft from the transfer case is in here, you should be sealed there. You shouldn't be getting any leakage past it. You know, I think that's the purpose of that leak hole down at the bottom. I'm going to be getting that transfer case rebuild kit, and it does come with that paper gasket that you can put there between there. So like I said earlier, 2 metal surfaces, typically you have some type of gasket there. So that'll come with the kit, so that'll be awesome. And when I'm just loosening the transfer case bolts, and I was getting leaking, so there's obviously fluid in here already, so my transmission output seal is leaking, so I have to replace that as well. And yes, I know, I can hear the comments already. Well, you didn't drain your transfer case, of course, or the transmission. Of course, when you separate, you're gonna get fluid leaking out. Well, yeah, I know. When that input shaft to the transfer case is still in there, it should be sealed there. So my whole point was that gap, that area in between there isn't normally filled up with fluid. So obviously my seal on one end was leaking. And originally I was not planning on separating the transfer case from the transmission. It was all going to come out as one unit, so no need to drain all the fluid. Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit of leakage, but now I've because I'm going to rebuild the transfer case here, we are going to go ahead and drain it. The transmission, I'm going to leak a little bit of fluid, but I'm not going to drain it all the way because the transmission fluid that came out actually looked really pretty clear. So happy with that. Let's see what's left in here. What was supposed to be a simple clutch has turned into so much more. All right, onto the transmission. So I've got everything else already disconnected as far as what clutch master cylinder, the crankshaft position sensor, all of that. Now, that's in our previous video. I'll have it linked below. Bolts, we've got this one, 2, and then up here on the back side, I can barely get my hand on it here. There we go. There's number 3 right there, but there's 2 on the top. Let's see if I can get the camera on it there. There it is. So we can zoom in. Right down there, there's 1 on each side at the top that we're accessing, obviously from the top side of the engine. And normally, those are these nasty little E12s, which are just a pain. And I replaced it because I put a new engine in this, obviously. I replaced it with better bolts that are just regular hex bolts. And I saved these as a memento of my struggles. And before I forget, I also want to mention there's 1 right in the middle, right down here at the very bottom. And because those top 2 are the hardest to get to, I'm going to do those first. I got a big old long extension on here. And 9/16 is what those 2 bolts are for me because I've replaced them. And my swivel here was a little too floppy, so I put a little duct tape on it to make it less floppy, make my tip less floppy there. So, and I can get to it from down underneath. Way back under here. Ooh, hallelujah, bolt number 1's out. And I'm not going to show you the other 8 because that's boring. And there we go, all the 9 transmission to engine mounting bolts. And now that everything is disconnected, got my transmission jack ready to go. It's strapped in. This is one of the other hard parts, is wiggling it out of there. It usually it's kind of stuck on the output shaft from the engine. You have to find the right angle, the right height. Sometimes I'm going up and down a little bit, shimmying it back until I find that sweet spot. I'll get up above and look to make sure that, yeah, I'm starting to get separation between the engine and transmission. So just keeping an eye on that as well. All right, I've got it separated from the engine here. I did not want to disconnect the exhaust, but I think I'm gonna have to, because the bell housing here, it's just not gonna clear. I need like another 1/2 inch. I thought I could get it, but nope. The exhaust is gonna have to come apart. So just disconnect those 2 bolts right up there on the exhaust, and then we'll drop the exhaust down a little bit. All right, exhaust is disconnected now. That should give me enough room to wiggle this out of here. And if your Jeep has enough lift on it, you should be able to wiggle this out. There we go. We'll take a quick look at the input shaft here. Throwout bearing, yeah, there's a little bit of crud and debris on there. We'll get that all cleaned up. Probably put a new throwout bearing and spring up here at the top. On the fulcrum right there, there's a little spring that you should replace if you're getting into here. And underneath the clutch, that was our whole purpose of this event. We'll get to the clutch another day, not gonna dig into that right now. And like I said earlier, what was supposed to start out as just a simple clutch job has now turned into transfer case rebuild. And if I'm doing that, I need to do a slip yoke eliminator on that. This has about 3.5 inches of lift on it, so it's right at the peak of where you start to need a slip yoke eliminator. I'm gonna look into that, order some parts for the transfer case, probably get to that next, and then the clutch. This project has turned into a big ordeal. So thank you guys so much for following along. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. If you enjoy this content and you want to show your support to the JeepSolid Garage, be sure to check out my Patreon page linked in the description below. Thank you guys and have a good day. Oh boy, we got a ways to go.